Hey there, and welcome to today's AAA Wednesday session. That stands for Ask Alyssa Anything. And in these sessions, I'm answering all your questions about the publishing industry and how to strengthen your story. Thank you so much to everyone who is submitting me questions. I'm really enjoying getting to go through them and hopefully helping you out on a more personal level. If you're new to my channel and haven't yet joined this amazing community of storytellers, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would also mean a lot to me if you go ahead and hit that like button to help these videos reach a wider audience. And I want to direct you to a free resource I created specifically for my YouTube community in the description below. It is called my Story Self-Assessment Worksheet, and it is a quiz that I designed to help you see your story from a new perspective. You're so deep in it that it can be challenging for you to understand what you think is working really well in your story and what can be improved, and sort out what you need to do on the next draft. So I created the worksheet specifically to help you through all of that. It is also going to sign you up for my newsletter, where I publish exclusive interviews with industry insiders and published authors, so you don't want to miss out on all the amazing tips and insights I share there. If you want to go straight to the newsletter, I also have a link to that in the description below for you to check out. Without further ado, let's dive into the questions today. Here's the first question. I'd love to hear more about what happens after the book deal for an author. Beyond just revising with an editor, how do authors get involved with marketing and publicity, cover design, all the many decisions that lead to a book launch? Obviously varies publisher to publisher, but would love to hear your insight. There is so much that goes into preparing a book for launch. So once you sign a book deal, yes, you are going to first go through extensive edits with the editor who acquired your book from the literary agent. You're also going to work with copy editors and proofreaders to get the manuscript in tip-top shape, fully polished and ready to go see readers. But there are also many other members of the publishing team that you're going to be interfacing with. At a Big 5 publishing house, you are going to have a dedicated marketing and publicity person, and that team is going to brief you on all of the marketing and publicity plans for your book launch. That could include things like coverage in certain media outlets, or it could include even events, or it could cover certain promotions or advertisements that they plan to run for the book, even social media campaigns. You are going to be totally looped into all of that. You won't be expected to be the driving force in terms of coming up with all of the marketing plans, but you will be expected to participate in whatever the publisher wants to put together for your book launch. You are also going to be looped into cover design and typesetting conversations, which is a really exciting part of the process that I personally loved being a part of when I was in the industry at Penguin Random House. That means your team is going to present you an option for what the cover could look like and solicit your feedback. It really is going to be a collaborative process. The publishing team is going to bring their professional insights into what specific elements of a cover draw readers in and are going to get the most eyes on your book, and they are going to be amenable to feedback that you have for your vision for the cover as well. Your book is then going to be made into essentially a dummy copy, which is what we call an advanced reader copy or a galley, which is basically a more primitive version of the finished book. So it's not gonna have all of the finished pages, et cetera, and it's not gonna have the fully designed cover either, but it will be book-sized, and those are going to go out to influencers or reviewers to help generate some buzz around your book. And then leading up to the launch, your team is going to definitely want you to spread the word and be active on social platforms if you have them, so that you can see the most success whenever your book hits the shelves. That's just obviously a very basic overview of what goes into a book launch, but I hope it gives you some sense of who you'll be working with and what types of tasks will be going on in the background. Here's another question. When an agent asks me to list books that are similar to the one that I am submitting, should the books be only from authors who the agent represents, or can they be books by authors who are not represented by the particular agent I am submitting to? So what we're talking about here is comparable titles. And do the comparable titles have to come from the agent you are querying, or can they be any title that has been published? If you are querying an agent because they represent a book that is very similar to yours, that makes perfect sense, and you should use that as a comp title. However, agents do not expect you to only list books that they have represented as your comp titles. And it is totally fine. It's definitely even expected to use comp titles that they have no association with. Now, there's a lot that goes into selecting a strong comp title. For instance, you want it to have been recently published. You want it to have been published by a traditional publisher versus being self-published. and you want it to have sold reasonably well to demonstrate to the literary agent the potential you see for your own book. So I recommend checking out my other video where I go into some of the nuances of selecting comp titles. I'll link it in the description here. But to answer the meat of your question, absolutely not. The agent does not have to represent the books you list as comps. And remember too that oftentimes you can use TV shows or movies as comps as well, unless the agent specifically asks for books. Here's another question. I'm a chapter away from finishing, but something bad inside me is growing and telling me to delete the whole story because I think it's pathetic and broken. I'm not sure if it's normal to feel like that. I've been having thoughts of literally just deleting the document 55,000 words as if nothing happened. I realized I have a huge dysfunction in my novel, and I'm afraid that when I sit down editing it, I'm gonna end up rewriting almost everything. I know I'm being dramatic, but help. So first things first, you are definitely not alone in feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you just don't even want to look at your manuscript again. However, do not delete it. I promise you, all of that work was valid and valuable, and it is important to your writing journey, so do not delete it. You mentioned being afraid that you might have to sit down and rewrite the whole thing, and that's making you just want to delete the manuscript in its entirety right now. As a developmental book editor, I am in the business of helping writers restructure, reshape, revise their stories, and I don't want you to see this as something to be avoided. I want you to see that as an opportunity to make your story even stronger. And that's not to say that everything in your document is trash. It is very unlikely that every scene in your document, every character, every sentence in your document is not going to end up in the final version of your story. After all, this is the initial telling of your story. So there are certainly elements of it that you are going to retain. But I don't want you to be afraid of the revision process, even if you have to revise a certain percentage of it. I work with authors who revise almost all of their manuscript, but they needed that first draft still, and they still relied on it in order to create the next version and the next version and the next version, right? So I don't want you to feel that because this version of the story isn't exactly where you want it to be yet, that it's trash. That is not the case at all, because this was the first step you needed to take to get to that final version of the story. So I want you to step away from the keyboard, save the draft, even make a backup copy of it if you're afraid of deleting it off your desktop or something to get it out of your site. Save it, put it in a safe space, physically or digitally, and then take some time away from it. If you really don't feel like you can dive in right now, that you're not in the right headspace to dive back in right now. Take some time away, and that is likely actually going to give you much needed perspective to return to the manuscript with fresh eyes and feel much more confident going into the revisions and bringing the story to the level that you want it to be. Even if this story doesn't end up getting published or doesn't end up being something you continue to work on, this made you a stronger writer. So I want you to return to that and realize and internalize that. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question today. And if you have a question you'd like to ask, drop it in the comments here to enter my queue for future video sessions. If you are enjoying these AMAs, please hit that thumbs up button to let me know that you're enjoying them. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget that I have my free story self-assessment resource and my newsletter link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.